Hello, everybody. So it's the top of the hour at 5 o'clock, Thursday, November 13th. We're about to get started with the webinar. Dr. Fain, if you can hear me, I can see your office. We are in two entirely different locations, but I think we are just about ready to go live. Everyone, thanks for joining us. If you're just getting here, let us know that you are here in the chat room below. Right below this video, there's a chat box, and tell us that you are here. Tell us your name and how everything is going. We will get started here in about 2 minutes.
Hello, Heath.
Hello, I am here.
Hello, Heath. Me too.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I was just finishing reading up on this book, the South Beach Diet book, and so it's a perfect time here, and I'm ready to go. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. That's an old classic, the South Beach. I see it
Yeah,
everywhere.
I don't know if you're talking about the book or me, but yes, it's an old classic.
Wonderful. Yeah, well, we are live, and so it's 5:03 by my clock here, so we will go ahead and get started. I'm going to jump over to the screen share real quick here and go through our plans for this evening. Okay. So everyone should be able to see my slideshow now. My name is Heath Redding. I will be hosting the webinar for the good Dr. Fain tonight, and we are going to be discussing diabetes, causes, and natural remedies. I'll give a quick overview of the discussion. We're going to break it into 4 parts. We're only going to be running the webinar for about an hour, so we'll briefly touch on each of these different areas: causes and symptoms, natural ways to combat diabetes, how to handle naturally diabetes, and the supplements that Dr. Fain recommends if you're dealing with it. And then after that, we're going to have a live Q&A session. You're welcome to ask any and all questions related to the webinar or not in the chat room below, and I will try to address those questions with Dr. Fain as we can. And then at the very end, we are going to have a live contest drawing for free products. Tonight's free product is glucose support, of course. So everyone that is attending this webinar and listening to it live will have a chance to win a free bottle at the end of the webinar here. So without further ado, I will go ahead and hand it off to you, Dr. Fain, and you can get started with part 1.
The causes and symptoms of diabetes. Before I start my piece, I want to thank Heath and his Red Buffalo Studios for all of the good work he does and the amazing web management that he offers. If you need someone who does what they say they're going to do and does it reliably and does a beautiful job, very integrative, consider Heath. You will enjoy working with him. Now, that being said, how is that, Heath?
Digital blushes, yeah.
You or me? You know, I used to be blonde, and blondes do a lot of blushing easily. I could never win at poker because my face would turn red when I'd have a good hand. So I learned how to be honest quickly because I couldn't not be. The causes and symptoms of diabetes. Well, it's a prominent ailment of this day, and it's a dangerous ailment of this day, and doesn't tend to get better unless somebody takes charge of their life and moves in the direction of health. First thing is to distinguish the type of diabetes. Is it a type 1 or a type 2 diabetes? Type 1, there's not a lot that we can do for it from a natural direction except handle the consequences of it, attempt to. And we're pretty good at that. The type 1 is more or less something that's part of the person when they're born, and it doesn't improve with what they can do behaviorally, medically, though it can be managed throughout an entire lifetime. If you look at type 1 diabetes, and what we do from a natural perspective is that we urge people to live a life that reduces inflammatory markers, and that would be simply part of what we do with type 2 diabetes too. And that's to get a C-reactive protein lab test done at least every 6 months for the type 1 diabetes, and every 6 months for type 2 diabetes. The C-reactive lab test, the protein lab test, has to be done through your medical doctor, or in some states can be done in laboratories that are franchise laboratories owned by medical doctors. You never see them, and is paid for as a retail purchase. So you can just walk in, get the blood draw. It's inexpensive, and it is not covered by medical insurance because it's a retail purchase. The A1C blood test is also an important part of that, and the A1C is a more or less a conglomeration of the sugar levels measured over a period of weeks to months, typically weeks. And when you put those two together, you get an idea overall just where the person is, how their body's handling sugar, either directly into their diet from the foods they're eating as complex sugars, or through the process of carbohydrates, particularly breads and grains, even whole grains, which are translated in the body into sugars, and then their connection to insulin and production of insulin. There you go. Then this is a monitor. It's an easily done finger stick. Interesting here is that I would recommend that you would do it on the opposite hand if you're right-handed. I'm assuming this person is left-handed because they're holding it that way. When you do the prick with the little device, do it on a non-dominant hand on a ring finger, because if you're going to use a dominant hand and a different finger, that little finger prick is going to hurt, and it's going to remain that way day after day after day. This is a log that is recommended to be done. You want to look at the trend on this log, much like you would do with blood pressure measurements. You don't want to look at an individual number as much as you want to look at the trend of those numbers over a period of time. Typically, recommendations are twice a day. Many people will do more than that because they get a little obsessive about it, and I don't think that's useful. I recommend to people that you do one in the morning and one before bedtime. One in the morning before you've done anything, and one before you go to bed, to see where your numbers range. Now look at this. This is the predominance on a county level of the estimates of diagnosed diabetes. And if you look at the South, it's predominantly in the South. And these are poorer states that are depending mostly upon processed foods and high protein, high carbohydrate diets, and obesity. If you look at places with diabetes, you see a lot of obesity. Now, do you get this from high fat? No, you don't get this from high fat. You get this from high sugar and high easily digested carbohydrates, and too much of it. That also goes hand in hand with high caloric intake, which adds to the weight situations. Now, the way you want to look at this, other than type 1 diabetes, is you want to reduce your weight. Now, with type 1 diabetes, you want to keep your weight in line too, but you'll see a difference with type 2 diabetes as you lose weight and as you change over more to a glycemic indexed food plan. That's why I was reviewing the South Beach Diet book before this program started this evening. The South Beach Diet book has been around a long time. Now, it is a diet book, but it really is a food plan, and it's an excellent way of living your life. In the original book, which you can buy online for next to nothing, and even in some bookstores, you can buy it for next to nothing, is something called a glycemic index. The glycemic index is the tool that somebody with diabetes will want to use, particularly type 2 diabetes, will want to use. That glycemic index listing will tell you which foods produce how much sugar in comparative terms to other foods in your body as you digest it. And it's all based upon white bread. White bread is a 100 value, and all of the other foods are compared to that as a comparative number. The general rule of thumb here is that, and depending upon the index that you decide to use, 65 and lower is a definite weight loss program, and it reduces the sugars in your blood, so it reduces the need for insulin to be produced. And here you are looking at the effect of what your diets would do on a day-to-day basis as you keep track of your glucose measurements. Now, this is not the A1C measurement. The A1C measurement, as far as I know, can't be done in this easily done format at this point. It probably will be one day. And the A1C is better done on an intermittent basis if you're really trying to get better, maybe every 3 months, in my opinion, or minimally every 6 months if you're dealing with this, to see what your A1C is. To me, the A1C is a definitive number. The glucose number is a guide. The glucose number in a non-diabetic person is generally accepted right around 100 and lower. And a person with diabetes, it's certainly, even though your primary care practitioner would not like this, but they'll generally accept anywhere up to about 130 and say you're doing pretty good. And you probably are. The A1C will reflect those lower numbers. Getting back to the South Beach and the glycemic indexed food plan, the lower your weight, the less sugar that's produced from the carbohydrates and from complex sugars from the table, and looking at your lifestyle, including exercise, reducing your stress, and this all works hand in hand. If you look at this, though, this is the way we all ought to be eating and living anyway. It's pretty good. Any way you look at it, it's a pretty good way of doing things. This also means spending a little more time in the kitchen yourself, cooking your own foods and eating out less often, especially not eating out often at fast food outlets. Unless you've got a very bad case of diabetes, an occasional fast food meal is grudgingly okay, but likely after you start eating real food, you won't like it anyway. It won't taste good. It's just not flavorful when you're not used to it anymore. That's it. That part of it is that much in a nutshell. So, Heath, can we go back to the outline and take on the next question? How to naturally handle diabetes, and that's exercise, weight loss, reducing stress, strain, good night's sleep, choosing your foods carefully through the glycemic index, and then eating less fast foods, more vegetables, and choosing proper fats, not worrying much about how much fat you're eating, but choosing good fats, reducing sugars in your diet. The glucometer that you're seeing here is easily affordable. They're easily used, and most insurances even pay for them, as far as I know. And you can do it to yourself. Again, I recommend testing once or twice a day. Over testing won't make much difference, and it'll just kind of drive you bonkers, and everybody around you will appreciate you not being bonkers. So, uh, now the supplements you might choose if you have diabetes, that's a good question. There are many out there that are useful. The one that will be given away today is called glucose support, and that's one product. And this one is a product made up of many different ingredients that are all scientifically shown to reduce the amount of sugar floating in your streaming in your bloodstream after eating, and it also includes many traditional herbals as well. One thing that can be used along with this that is an excellent idea to do is a little bit of regular vinegar, and that can be taken at the time of a meal, maybe a tablespoon, at the same time as using the supplement, and that's amazingly effective. A drawback to using the vinegar, and it can be any kind of vinegar, it doesn't matter. Some people will say apple cider vinegar, but it doesn't have to be. One drawback to that is that for people who have a propensity for indigestion, it's just going to cause more indigestion. So the glucose support would be used in place of that or along with, and it does not cause any indigestion or have any negative side effects known, and is very, very helpful in the management of sugar levels in most people. The other supplements that can be useful would be cinnamon. Cinnamon all by itself in the diet is interesting. We simply don't use much cinnamon or real cinnamon in our food here in the West. It's more Middle Eastern, and real cinnamon is different than the cinnamon that you get at the grocery store. The active ingredient in cinnamon is called sinulin. And Heath, can you flash over to me here, or can you just see this easily? And this sinulin is also available online on my online store or through mail order, and or in person in the store. And this is my private label sinulin product. And this does not cause any acid indigestion or stomach distress like regular cinnamon tablets would do. This is an excellent choice as well. Some people need to do both, and some people don't need to do anything but lose weight. Remember the C-reactive protein test that I mentioned earlier needs to be done along with an A1C either every 3 months or every 6 months, in my opinion, as when insulin levels increase, inflammatory markers on the inside of the arteries goes up because of the causticness of the insulin. And as those numbers go up, your body tends to want to protect itself by laying down layers of plaque on raw and annoyed areas of the arteries. And that's called plaque buildup, which can kind of cause trouble over the long haul, and heart attacks and cardiovascular disease occurs very commonly among people with diabetes because of that very reactive protein. Using a homocysteine support product, which is a private label of mine, and or simply supplementing with adequate amounts of fish oil or krill oil, depending, is the way to go. Either one or both, depending upon how high those levels are, the C-reactive protein levels are. Sometimes, no matter what a person does, those numbers on the on the A1C stay high, even though they lose weight, they go on drugs like metformin, which is one of the primary. By the way, if you do that, I strongly recommend that you supplement with at least a multivitamin and probably extra B complex and magnesium, because metformin does interfere with the absorption of many of the nutritional uh, needs that you have. And we do know that the B vitamins, particularly B12, and magnesium are impacted, and you need both of those. So that's something you can do, along with taking fish oils if you're already taking a prescribed drug like metformin. Now, I'm glad to talk with anybody about what they're doing, and strongly recommending that they work with their medical doctor if they can, and then supplementing to take care of the side effects, the side impact, let's call it, of the prescribed drugs, which you don't want to do for a long period of time, living with those side impacts. And perhaps by making these healthy changes in your lifestyle and in using natural products, you can actually work with your doctor at reducing the amount of prescribed drug you're taking. Stopping diabetes is what this is all about. And not starting it in the first place by living a more active life and choosing better food not only helps stop diabetes, but it causes people to have better lives because they feel better. They're more involved. Emotions aren't down in the dumps. The depressions tend to drop away. Heart attack and problems down the road are reduced. With less weight, knees and joints last longer. It's easier to get up and down, and less grunting and groaning. It's just better across the board. Now let's talk about ideal weight, and that's called body mass indexing, and even that is maybe not something everybody can do, but losing weight will help, and it just makes for a better life. Let's look at another one of those points, please, Heath.
Yeah, that's all 4 parts as far as slideshows and stuff goes. We can start addressing questions if you're ready.
Sure, because I've covered those 4 points. I talked faster than I thought I would. It must have been that B12 I took before I started this.
No worries. Yeah. So what we'll do, guys, is we'll start answering y'all's questions. If y'all want to type it in the chat box below the video here, we will go through them one by one. And again, this can be related to the diabetes, the topic that Dr. Fain is discussing, or any other health-related questions you might have. We'd be happy to try to answer them. So going back at the start here, we have a question from Mickey Z. She's asking, I might butcher this name, but is berberine really natural metformin? Are milligrams the same? 500 milligrams of berberine equals 500 milligrams of metformin?
It's an excellent question. It's an excellent question. And I just want to say hi to Mickey. I always enjoy Mickey, so I wanted to say hi and acknowledge her. No, berberine is quite an interesting supplement all by itself. It's one of the very few nutritional supplements that has been clinically tested and shown to be as effective as metformin in most people for the reduction of diabetes and getting better numbers. Berberine is not equivalent to metformin in its dosage. It's entirely different milligrammage use and that sort of thing. Generally, it's berberine is used at 500 milligrams per meal. However, if it's a lightweight breakfast, I don't think I would do berberine. But if it's a lunch of any kind or a supper of any kind, and the person has diabetes, I think it's a good idea. And typically that's one 500 milligram capsule per meal. The drawback to berberine is that it works in the same pathways, as far as I understand, as metformin. And similar to metformin, some people can have trouble adjusting to it. So for the first week, it's simply one 500 milligram uh, capsule, tablet, whatever the form is that you're getting per day until your body has adjusted, which is typically about a week, and then it's one per main meal. The question then comes up, well, do I need to take it if I'm on a low glycemic indexed food selection? I mean, meaning very little grains or no grains, and very low sugar intake. And if you have diabetes, yeah, you still want to, because your body doesn't work like other people's. Now, Mickey, please type in if I haven't addressed everything you need to know about that. Berberine is a very interesting choice. Not everybody can do it, however. Oh, one more thing I want to back up on. People that have had diabetes, particularly type 2, for a long time can have all kinds of leg pains. It's called neuropathy, and it can go all the way down to the feet. Now, other things can cause neuropathy, but if you have diabetes, you have to consider that it's a diabetic neuropathy. Neuropathy is a condition of chronic inflammation of the nerve or nerves going down the legs. And once nerves are annoyed, boy, it takes a long time to cool them down if you can. And sometimes people can't, and that's really rough. So you want to be very active if you've got sugar problems at all. You want to be very active to make sure that long-term effects don't become chronic, because, boy, that can be very painful. Are there other questions, Heath?
Yes, there are some other questions, and just to reiterate, guys, you can ask any questions you want down in the chat box, and we're happy to answer them related to diabetes or not. And if there's anything that Dr. Fain has kind of breezed over and it hasn't emphasized that you don't understand, we'd be happy to address specifics or just general kind of newbie questions. And I'm in that school of people. I'm not really familiar with diabetes. And I do have kind of just a general question. Is there kind of symptoms that I would notice if I was starting to contract diabetes?
Well, you don't contract, you develop a diabetes.
I would say, yeah.
And the early symptoms, are pretty broad in general. Dry mouth, usually weight gain, that sort of thing, headache. The whole thing here is you want to have a medical doctor draw some blood and check your glucose levels in a fasting state. And if those numbers are, for a person who isn't diagnosed with diabetes, around 100 and lower. If it's a little bit higher, that's okay, like 105. Some docs will even go up to 110. That's perfectly fine. And, there's a little bit of variance there, but really you need to have it checked if you're worried at all. If it runs in your family, absolutely, you need to have your medical doctor draw some blood and just check your glucose levels just to make sure that you're not worried about something that isn't occurring. And it still goes back to we all ought to be eating on a low glycemic food plan anyway, and we all need to have a little more exercise than we do, and we all need to keep the weight off if we can. And those are all good for you and will contribute to a longer life anyway, and a better life.
Wonderful. That answers my question. Thank you. I will go on to the next question here now. So this is from the user Tulsi. She's asking how to transition from drug treatment, and again, weird names, Victorzo and metformin, to natural treatments. How would you go about that?
That's a good question. One thing I make sure of, and this is a bit of a disclaimer, is that I make sure that this is always the responsibility and joy of the client to make this decision, not mine. And I don't recommend getting between a doctor and a patient ever. It's just not a good thing to do for any reason. However, if I was to see how I say this, if I was to transition from a drug to a supplement approach, I would make sure that I'd met all the criteria that I've talked about the weight loss, change of food plans, exercise. I would look at optimizing my vitamin D levels. I would look at, for sure, taking a quality probiotic every day. In other words, I would lean everything in my favor that I could, and I'd be taking a nutritional supplement of fish oil every day. And then I would look at either phasing, well, I would look at phasing off of the prescribed drug in this case, meaning looking at your current dosage and can I, if it's a tablet, can I cut them in half, or do I need to skip every other day? I would be keeping track of my glucose numbers regularly, twice a day, and keeping a record of it. And I would be working with a health practitioner to the best that I could find in doing this. And then I would be adding the nutritional products as I went, keeping track of my glucose levels. Now, this sounds complicated. It isn't. It's easier to do than you think. The caution here is that you don't want to lose management of your sugar levels and your insulin levels. It's imperative that for your longevity and good health and long life that you stay on top of those numbers and keep them as low as you can possibly go. And if you can't do that without the prescribed drugs, then you really do need to make that decision in some way, balancing out what your priorities are and what works for you. And I'm glad to talk to people about that, making sure that it's your decision, it isn't mine.
Wonderful. Thank you for that answer. Mickey Z asks another question. She's saying asking is glucose support, cinnamon, and berberine overkill? Taking all of them together?
Not necessarily overkill. If in cases of stubborn high glucose levels by finger prick, or stubborn HA1C or A1C levels, the three may very well be justified. And there are some people that even with doing all of it, the A1C will remain stubbornly high. In that case, I recommend that you just get your A1C tested on maybe every 3 months, and stay on the diet plan, get a C-reactive protein done every time you get an A1C test done, and make sure your inflammatory levels are just as low as they can possibly go. And then stop obsessing and go out and live your life and laugh and have fun and just do good things for yourself. There's some things we just don't know why they go the way they go. Nobody does. And some people don't find the prescribed drugs work for them, and or the side effects are nasty for them. And some people find that the natural products work really well for them, and other people find they don't. So we have to kind of do this as we go. Overkill to do all three? Not necessarily. What you don't want to do is to underkill and let those numbers go high and cause your body harm.
Great. Okay, so someone else asked another question here. Why does DIM smell so bad? DIM?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I just talked with Ginger. If you go online, you'll see a picture of Ginger and Robin. I was just talking to Ginger about that yesterday, or day before yesterday. Diindolylmethane is DIM, D-I-M, and it's derived from sulfur-containing vegetables. It's cruciferous vegetables that's derived from that. So it has this kind of foul, sulfury smell to it. And you know, if you're around a lot of broccoli or around a lot of anything in that family, it can be a little bad smelling, especially as it cooks. And that's why it's in that sulfur family. So to hold your nose and swallow it anyway, it's good for you. Now, do I sound like your old mother?
Wonderful, cool. I'm trying to go through the questions here and see if there's anything else. Again, guys, if y'all have any more questions, you are welcome to ask them in the chat box below, and Dr. Fain will address them right now. Bob asks, generally, should supplements be taken with meals?
Yes, generally that's true. Uh, these are all considered food items, and as with any food item, it's best taken with other food because your digestive process is in play. Now, that being said, there are some supplements that are classified as food products by our system here in the United States, and that are best done between meals. Anything food supplement wise that's in the amino acid family, and that you can tell by looking on the bottle if there's an L in front of it, like L-theanine, L-glutamine, L-carnosine, anything with an L in front of it, that means it's an amino acid. And amino acids make up protein when you put them all together. And when the body has all of those amino acids together, more or less what occurs is the body sees it as maybe like a piece of chicken, and it goes into more muscle replacement and muscle building than it does individual use. Therefore, something like L-theanine and L-glutamine and L-carnosine, when taken on an empty stomach, they tend to go into the specific amino acid use. Like L-theanine is a relaxant. L-glutamine gets converted into the liver into glutathione, and it's marvelous for the body and the liver, and other things that it may do. The L-carnosine is useful for a lot of different things. I generally recommend it for people with early cataracts, for instance, and taken individually like that is the way to go. One other one is called SAMe, and SAMe is a prescribed drug in different European countries, but here in the United States it's considered a food supplement. And many people take it for mood. It reduces their depressiveness for them and drops their anxiety for them. That one needs to be taken between meals and on an empty stomach. Most of the time, the bottle language and the description on the bottle will say, when to take it and that sort of thing. If you have any questions, give us a call. Anybody who's a customer of ours can call us anytime. And as long as you're a customer of ours, there's no charge for calling and talking to us, and we can help you sort that out. So what I'm trying to find here in the South Beach book is the glycemic index. And what I found immediately in looking at this was foods to enjoy, and it lists them all out for you. Then it says foods to avoid, and it lists them out for you. And the glycemic index itself is a shortened one, and here it is here. And I'll give you an example of the interesting thing here. And people say, well, all vegetables are fine, right? If you're diabetic, I can eat all vegetables. And I'm just looking at the root vegetables. And a sweet potato has a glycemic index of 63, which is wonderful. Cooked carrots, 70. A yam, and I'm not sure what their distinction is between a yam and a sweet potato, but that's 73, which is very good. Now we start to look at, well, what about a baked potato? That's 158 on the glycemic index. And at 158, that's all sugar production, which means high insulin production. It breaks off somewhere around a boiled white potato, and that's still agreeable, but it's middle level at 83. But if you did 83, that's probably okay. Now, a boiled white potato that's buttered would be better, because the butter actually reduces the digestion time, which kind of gives you more or less a timed release of the sugars that you're digesting out of the starch. And because the oils cause your digestion to slow down. I'm looking at legumes, which is, of course, the family of beans. And if you look at lentils, they're a low 36. If you look at soybeans, like edamame at a Japanese restaurant, that's a low 23. Butter beans boiled, 44. Chickpeas, 47. Pinto beans, 55. Black-eyed peas, 59. Are they all good? Yeah, they are, except for fava beans. Now, fava beans are maybe not so common here in the United States, but you do find them in high-end restaurants, and they're delicious, and they should be, because there's a load of sugar in them. It's 113. That's more than what white bread would give you. This is the value of using the glycemic index. It's easy to sort out. Well, now on a diabetic food plan, you'd think, well, I can't do desserts anymore, but you can. Listen, here's a yogurt, a 20. Here's yogurt fruit flavored, 47. Here's ice cream, believe it or not, 71. It's pretty interesting what you can do. What about cakes and that sort of thing? There are actually some on the glycemic index that you can do. Here's under breakfast cereals. Well, wake up in the morning and do brand checks, and Life cereal, good for you, not if you're diabetic. Life cereal has a glycemic index of 94. All bran is a glycemic index of 60, and Special K is a 77. Now, so you can see where this is going. There are some that you can do, some that you should not do. So this sorts it out for you very easily. Now, the book is a really good book to have because it tells you everything you need to know. It comes from a weight loss direction, but it's written by cardiologists. And one of the reasons I like this is South Beach is, of course, South Beach, Miami. And when I was a very young man, I was at the University of Miami, Jackson Memorial Hospital, and some of the cardiologists in here that he talks about, I met back in those days because I was involved in cardiovascular and nuclear medicine research in those early days. And in fact, one of my diplomas on the wall is signed by one of the cardiologists referenced in the book. So I've got some background with the book, and I think it's an extremely good purchase to have for you and your family. And start your kids eating like this early on. Develop the flavors and the tastes. They won't want to eat anything but this because it is so good. It's a delicious way to live. Easy, too. It cuts your cooking time down to nothing to live according to this style of food selection and eating. Other questions yet?
I think we've answered all the questions down in the chat box. I'm not getting any more, so we'll go ahead and move into the last segment here. We're going to run the contest for the free bottle of glucose support, guys. Just so you know, the glucose support is on sale on the store right now. If you click the button below the video here, it'll take you to our online store, and you can pick up the glucose support supplement at a discount right now.
May I intercept for just a second? Folks, there are online promotions that we do because we want you to be using the store online, particularly during the winter months. The Herbacy is in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and if you haven't Googled Eureka Springs, Arkansas, do it. And if you haven't been here, consider stopping by. It's a beautiful little town. However, we've got steep Ozark Mountains, and when we get snow and ice, we sometimes can't get in or out. If we're here and we can't get out, then we have to stay here. And the online store, as long as the U.S. Postal Service is running, you can order from the warmth of your own home, even if we can't get to you or you can't get to us. You can order from the warmth of your own home. We will process your order because Robin can walk to the store from where she lives here in Eureka Springs, process the orders, and ship according to USPS. So we urge you to be trying our online store. Now, the sale at the online store isn't applicable to calling in and ordering right now, nor is it applicable to coming into the store. It's online only at 15% off any of the private label. And if you spend more than $49 online, there is no shipping fee. So this is part of why we want to do it, particularly getting through these more intense weather events for everybody in the United States, as it turns out, and for us here in Eureka Springs with our steep mountainsides. So that's part of what we want to do. We want to be of service to you year-round, and we do want your availability to ask us questions. And you can do that just by being a customer of ours, whether it's online, by calling in and mail ordering, or by stopping by the store. We always like to hear from you. And I personally, Heath will tell you, I'm a Luddite. I used to be very technically astute, and now I depend on Heath to do this, and it's it's uh, it's a good use of technology for us all. So thank you for trying the website. Heath, I
Yes.
took up some space there, but I wanted to plug that in.
No, that's great. Well said. And like Dr. Fain is saying, all the online sales that help support this webinar endeavor too, and us, hosting these and providing value to everyone and answering those questions. So, uh, thank you for the support and thank you for being on the webinar even and asking your questions. But let me go ahead and move us into the final round now. We're going to do the live contest drawing, and the way that this works is I actually have to have y'all's names to submit you into our little wheel spinner. So you have to make sure you tell me your name in the chat room below. You have to put your name on there so that I can submit it, and we'll give you all a few minutes to do this. It's right below the video. Click on the chat box and just enter your name. That way I can get you in the drawing for the free glucose support. Dr. Fain, I do have one more thing I think we should address because it's so timely
Sure.
right now. Yep. I wanted to just get your advice on preparing for the winter season and, supplements and staying healthy. I just got done battling a nasty cold, and I'm sure many other people are or will be soon. So since we won't be having another webinar till probably December, it'd be a great time to discuss just real quickly natural
Sure.
ways.
Sure, absolutely. Well, prevention is the way to go here. And then I'll talk about, after that, what you need to have on hand in case you do get sick. But the preventive side of natural health, for most things, actually, would be optimizing your vitamin D levels. And I recommend people start doing that in the fall, early fall. And by that, I mean somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 IU a day for everybody. And if it's a child, probably more like 4,000. If it's an adult, a standard adult, 6,000, something along that line. It's helpful to have a D3 lab test to see where your numbers are, but optimal on the lab test to me would be somewhere between 65 and 75. The medical doctors consider anything above 30 to be normal, but believe me, 30 is not optimal. We do know that the immune system doesn't work very well. Most things don't work very well. The lower the number of the measurement of the vitamin D goes. So I think optimizing vitamin D levels is the number one thing to do. Secondarily, taking a probiotic every day not only improves your digestion of your nutrients, which supports your body, but it's also been linked scientifically to improving your immune system. It's which is very interesting. It's also been linked to the reduction of coronary artery disease. It's also been linked to the reduction of dementias just by taking a quality probiotic, which you can buy online through my store every day. It needs to be an enteric-coated product with billions of the little guys inside, and it needs to be multiple families. The way to deal with colds and flu typically comes up later than colds, though early symptoms are often similar and sometimes hard to sort out, is that for colds, there's nothing better than elder for a cold, and we have that here by mail order, not online though. And the elder is pretty good for flu too. It's easy, no side effect, and most people, I've never heard of anybody having a problem with it, and you can take as much or as little as you need. The product I think is best for both is that the very first symptom is to take a high dose of something called monolaurin. Now, monolaurin is available in my store here. It is not available online in my store, and I have different brands that I think are better than others. And high dose monolaurin would be somewhere in the neighborhood of the product I carry, 10 a day, but those capsules can be divided or they can be opened up into powder and just mixed in water and down the hatch. If you catch it early, in the early symptoms, typically the flu doesn't develop at all. Often, if your vitamin D levels are optimized, the flu doesn't take hold. It's pretty interesting if you do this combination. And if you start early with a monolaurin, even a cold doesn't really catch. Monolaurin will also stop most cold sore outbreaks right in their tracks if you dose high enough and early enough. The other thing is to, of course, eat the best you can, stay up with your exercise, get out as much as you can, stay as warm as you can, and limit the amount of alcohol you drink during the winter. I know it's tempting. Let me tell a quick story, Heath, while you're getting people's names put in, and please do give Heath your names. This is a wonderful product, and somebody will be lucky enough to win it, and it's a really neat thing. Let me tell a quick story, and this is when I was about 20 years old, 19 years old. I was just starting in medicine. I was probably 18 or 19. See, my memory's going. Anyway, I was a junior student X-ray tech, and that's about as low as you can get. And I was working with the supervision of a senior student X-ray tech, which means they had one more year's experience than I did. And I was assigned to do chest X-rays, preoperative chest X-rays, which are the easiest X-rays to learn how to do. And in those days, we had to take the film into the darkroom and identify it with what's called a flash card in the darkroom. Of course, it's dark. You can't see what you're doing, so you have to do it all by touch. And one of the things we're taught is that after you process the film, you would put it up in the viewing area to look at it and then compare what you saw in the X-ray to what you thought the person looked like in person. In other words, if it was a young person, you'd expect good firm bone density and no calcium in the nodules and no calcium showing up in the aorta, the heart, and that sort of thing. If it's an old person, you would expect all of that, thinning calcium in the ribs and nodules that have calcified in the lungs, nodules showing up in the lungs. And then you would say, well, no, this matches, so it must be identified properly in the darkroom. Well, I got the film out, and the chest film looked beautiful. It was perfect. It was too perfect for this old guy. This old guy was 104 years old, never been in the hospital before. So I had to retake his film and to prove that it was the right one. We got the same film out, it was the same film. So I knew this was correctly identified in the darkroom. Went back and told him why we're doing it, and then asked him for his secret. And this was his secret for longevity and being healthy. And he did 3 fingers of bourbon every day and a big old cigar in the evening. So there you have it. There you have it. That's the secret to a long, healthy life. 3 fingers of bourbon and a big old fat cigar every day in the evening.
Great.
And maybe something to the relaxation on that, I guess.
Wonderful. All right, well, I have gathered the names, and we are going to run the free drawing for the glucose support. I'm going to switch over to my screen here. Okay, everyone should be able to see that. I only had 3 people tell me their names in the chat room, so I realize we have a lot of mobile listeners and people that are in their car, joining this webinar. So just so future reference, if you want to be in the free drawing, you do have to be on the desktop or somewhere where you can enter your name in the chat room. and let us know that you were here so you can be in the drawing. So I'm going to submit the list now. Can you see this, Dr. Fain?
I do, and boy, what good odds.
Those are awesome odds. 1 in 3 chance. So here we go. Let's see. We're going to give it a spin. And it's Bob Pitts. Congratulations, Bob. You have won your free bottle of glucose support.
Make sure we have your mailing address.
Yeah, you can send Dr. Fain an email through the website. Guys, that pretty much concludes the webinar. We thank you for joining us, of course, and so everyone knows we will have this on replay. We'll have the webinar available for viewing in case you missed it or any of it cut out for you. We'll send you an email with those links to watch the replays soon. So thank you. Thanks to everyone for joining us, and thank you, Dr. Fain.
Thank you, Heath. You're great, and thank you, everybody, for joining.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night.